I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for joining me on the Duke Clemson preview. In 1 week, Clemson goes up to Durham, North Carolina, plays at 8 o'clock. It's a weird game. We'll get to that in just a second. Hey, I'm Brian Knight. I am not Bobby Durkins, at least not right here. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It's free. It does help out the channel. Hit the thumbs up. Help me feed my children. I'm kidding. But if you want to, I'll take it. But anyway, thanks for joining me. Clemson going to Duke is a really weird game. First game of the year, Monday night. It's Labor Day. Everything's just really, really odd. But we all know about Garrett Riley. We all know that Cade Klubnik finally gets the keys to the car. But I am not going to talk about that near as much as I'm going to talk about who I believe needs to step up in this particular game. So, who is it? What's the key to the game for me on both sides of the ball? I'll make this short. I'll make this sweet. The offensive line. Why the offensive line? So over the past few years, they have had very little to work with when it comes to creativity by the offensive coordinator. In fact, I definitely count the last year that Tony Elliott was there as a year of creativity. But over the past few years, it's just been mundane. So defenses and defensive coordinators, they pin their ears back and they say, hey, we know what's coming, so we're going to overwhelm the offensive line. Then we don't trust the quarterback, so we're going to make him throw the ball fast. We're going to make him throw the ball in the dirt. He doesn't, come to find out, doesn't even really want to be there anymore. Couldn't blame him. The offensive coordinator is not creative. So the offensive line has possibly received a lot of feedback, or not feedback, just kind of a kick in the gut because of that. I'm going to extend an olive branch there and say that that's a possibility. It's a great possibility. But Monday night, they don't have that to fall back on. Yes, you could say that they have a new offensive coordinator and everyone's still learning the system. You could say that Duke has Dwayne Carter, a fifth-year senior, preseason All-ACC defensive lineman. Sure, but this is the same defense that last year, and they returned the majority of their defense, actually had a couple of transfers in from A&M and the University of Miami, Florida. You could say that the offensive line should be given a little grace here, but I'm sorry, I think I've extended enough understanding to a bunch of four-star players that's been recruited in, including one five-star, unless he gets injured between this Monday, which would be today, and next week, Tristan Lee, who was higher rated than Will Shipley coming out of high school. It is time for them to step up and impose their will against Duke. Duke gave up 40 points last year per game. Their defense did not help them whatsoever. Then go and look at Duke's schedule for last year. Now, remember, I have pumped up Duke. I've talked about Riley Leonard, their quarterback. I've talked about the wide receivers, but I have been very quick to come back and say this. They haven't played a team like Clemson. They didn't play a team like Clemson all last season. So this will be very different for them on both sides of the ball. Clemson does not need to show their offensive playbook. Florida State will have to show it on day one, which will be the day before. That's the Sunday before Clemson plays at Duke. FSU, LSU, they play in Orlando. Florida State, if they want to win that game, they have to show their playbook. Clemson, on the other hand, if their offensive line will impose their will have to show very little. We line up, we run the ball with our three running backs that are very capable. Run Cade sparingly if we possibly can, and get out of there healthy, get out of there with a solid win, and then move on to Charleston, Southern Florida Atlantic, only for the next week after that, play Florida State. And Florida State scratching their head going, what is their playbook? We know Florida State's playbook because, again, on day one, they had to show it. This scenario only works out if our offensive line lines up like a bunch of men and beats up on Duke. Now, the next facet, throw this in there, for our offense is our wide receivers. Now, I mentioned just a second ago that one of the guys that transfers in is Al Blades Jr. That Blades name is very famous in college football, especially in the state of Florida. He transfers from Miami up to Duke. And then the other guy, I cannot remember his name for the life of me. He's out of Texas A&M, but he saw a lot of starts at A&M, and now he's at Duke. Would that help them? Yeah, definitely. It should on paper, and in theory, it should definitely help them. Our wide receivers, if they can stay healthy, and that's like a massive if, it's time for them to ball too. You have an offensive coordinator who is creative. You have a quarterback who will extend the play. You have running backs. Backs, did you hear that? Plural. Who can actually play. You have a tight end that is ridiculous. Wide receivers, and I don't count Bo Collins and Antonio Williams in this. I'll be careful about Cole Turner because he came on late in the season. But wide receivers, it's time to step up. It's time to stay healthy. I know that's a touchy subject. I hate to even talk about it. But it's time to play football. It's time to block downfield. If the ball is near you, your job, the reason you're on scholarship, is to catch the football no matter the cost. Mike Williams broke his neck trying to catch a football. He recovered, he came back, and he continued to fight for the football. He lives in infamy at Clemson. He lives in infamy because he fought, not because he walked around on the sidelines trying to do his best Odell Beckham Jr. impression with freaky hair, a cocky look on his face, and I'll just leave that there. It's time to play football. On the defensive side of the ball, what other school in the country, except for maybe Alabama, Georgia, could lose Brian Bresee, Miles Murphy, and Trenton Simpson and still be a wrecking ball of a defense? Clemson. Clemson's front seven is ridiculous. Our linebackers are out of this world. Now, we have seniority in the secondary. We know who they are. We know their talents. We know their abilities. Nate Wiggins, to me, was one of the most impressive after getting picked apart in the Wake Forest game. And instead of hitting the transfer portal like a whiny little baby until he goes to some school where he's the best player on the team, and now it's like, see, I'm showing them. No, you're not. He stayed in, and like a man, he improved. Obviously, we have Makuba, Phillips. We have the talent here. We have Sheridan Jones. But gentlemen, I'm going to say this to you. Don't be the weakest link. Riley Leonard is a very good quarterback. Now, is the Duke wide receivers, even though they're seniors, except for I think one junior, are they to the talent level that you would find at maybe Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan? No. But they are seniors. And they do have a guy who can extend the play with his legs. Don't be the weak link in this game. Don't be the reason why Duke stays in the football game. Simply play your assignment. Good communication. Knock their heads off their shoulders. And we'll be just fine. Get out of this game healthy, more gelled, and ready for the game in 3 weeks after the Duke game that everybody's going to be watching. And it's Florida State and Clemson in Death Valley. At this point, Clemson is a 13-point favorite. I included the link below. Not a big ESPN fan for various reasons, but the link is below the video. You can check it out. You can see the change in the line. You can look up statistics for each team. and you can check out more information if that helps you keep up with the game a little better. Here's my prediction. If, and that's a massive word, if is a 2-letter word with massive implications. If Clemson imposes their will on the offensive line, I can almost guarantee you're going to know very little about Clemson's offense from a strategic standpoint. But if for some reason Clemson is struggling and they have to open up the playbook, it will be Cade and Will Shipley and Maffa who will really open things up. But hopefully, if things go my way, we show very little. We win in the trenches, and then in the secondary for our defense, we actually just be a complete unit. So I have Clemson winning this game by roughly 17 points. Don't be shocked if Clemson, especially if they get to going and their secondary is playing very, very well. Don't be shocked if they win by more. Is an upset possible? Anytime you play a game with a really good quarterback and a team who returns the majority of their players, yes, absolutely. There's a chance. I don't think Duke wins this game whatsoever. Clemson, I call them by at least 17, if not more. And I really believe that if we win the trenches, especially on the offensive line, we're going to win it on the defensive side of the ball for us. We're definitely going to win it. But if we win it on the offensive line, you're going to see, I think you're going to see a very worn out Duke team that ends up giving up a lot of points. So anyway, I call Clemson by at least 17 in this ball game. Folks, if you enjoyed this commentary, I know it's short, it's to the point, but that's what a lot of you want. And hey, it makes my job a lot easier. Hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, pass it around in your fan forums, pass it along to any of your friends who likes Clemson football or just talking college football in general. I do appreciate your support, and I will catch you next time. I have some more videos where I'll be talking about upcoming games this weekend, so be on the look out. My God, I can't speak. Look out for them. Take care. As always, go Tigers.